56 kilometers. That is the distance separating the Iranian coast from Oman, at the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz. On a map, it looks like a trivial distance. In reality, it is here that military hardware worth millions could face an enemy that costs a fraction of the price. The AH-64E Apache Guardian flies at low altitude along the coastline. 2 pilots, a 30mm M230 cannon, Hellfire missiles, a Longbow radar system worth $7 million on its own, a machine designed as a response to Soviet tank columns in Central Europe, costing $45 million each, from an IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, coastal post. Another machine takes to the sky. Unmanned, without complex electronics, the Iranian Shahed 191 UAV, or its simpler sibling, the Mohajer-6, priced between $100,000 and $500,000. One of them will not return, and it's not the one you're thinking of. Combat calculus. We're not chasing headlines. We're breaking down the doctrine behind them. By the end of this video, you'll understand 3 things. First, why the Apache, the world's best attack helicopter, is structurally vulnerable in the Strait of Hormuz. Second, how Iranian military doctrine has been specifically built around this vulnerability for the last 20 years. And third, why what happens in this 56-kilometer-long choke point directly determines the price of the petrol you put in your tank every week. Let's start with the Apache, because it's important to understand exactly what is under threat. The AH-64E Apache Guardian. Length, 17.5 meters. Roughly the size of a 5-story building laid on its side. Combat weight, around 8 tons. That's heavier than 3 off-road vehicles stacked on top of one another. The crew consists of 2 people, a pilot and a weapons operator. Armament, an M230 cannon, firing 750 rounds per minute. Hellfire missiles with a range of up to 9 kilometers, and Hydra 70 unguided rockets. The Guardian variant is equipped with a Longbow radar, which can simultaneously track up to 256 targets and select 16 priority targets. In open terrain or desert conditions, it is virtually an invincible hunter. Its cruising speed is 280 kilometers per hour. Combat range, around 150 kilometers. On paper, that means absolute air superiority at low altitudes. Now, the other side of the equation, the Iranian Mohajer-6 UAV. Wingspan, around 10 meters. Roughly the size of a Gazelle minibus, parked in the middle of the road. Weight, 100 kilograms without payload. Speed, 200 kilometers per hour. Service ceiling, 5,500 meters. Payload, up to 50 kilograms. Low-profile design, small thermal signature, minimal acoustic signature. The Shahed 191 is a heavier and more technologically advanced version. Jet engine, capability to carry guided munitions, range of up to 2,000 kilometers. It is dubbed the Iranian Predator, with the difference that it is mass-produced and costs 2 orders of magnitude less than its American counterpart. Now, the main question. Why here of all places? Why does the Strait of Hormuz specifically turn the Apache from a hunter into a target? The answer lies in both geography and physics. The Strait of Hormuz is a bottleneck, 56 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. To the north lies the Iranian coastline, with hills ranging from 300 to 800 meters in height. To the south lies the low, flat coastline of Oman. Any aircraft operating in this corridor is within direct line of sight from the Iranian shore. Imagine a torch in a tunnel. You cannot hide it. Wherever you go, the tunnel walls watch you from both sides. This is the Strait of Hormuz for American aviation at low altitudes. The Apache was designed for a different theater of operations. The open plains of Central Europe, where its task was to destroy Soviet tanks from a distance. It is optimized for ground threats from below, not for aerial threats from the sides or above. Its Longbow radar works superbly against ground targets, but it was not designed as the primary means of detecting low-speed, low-observable UAVs against the backdrop of a mountainous coastline. In such an environment, a small drone appears on radar as a bird, or as a signal artifact from a rock. It is like trying to spot someone in a crowded market through the scope of a sniper rifle. It performs well at a distance, against a clear background. Amidst chaos, it goes blind. Rand Corporation analyst Timothy Heath noted in a report on the 2023 Gulf confrontation, the environment of the Strait of Hormuz creates an asymmetric advantage for the defending shore-based side. The cost of deploying a countermeasure exceeds the cost of the threat itself by a factor that is unsustainable for a viable operation. Iran realized this as far back as the 1990s, and it methodically built its doctrine around this conclusion. If this seems like mere theory, let us turn to the facts. 1988. The tanker war in the Persian Gulf. Iran attacks neutral tankers using missiles and military speedboats. The U.S. deploys escort vessels. In April 1988, the American frigate USS Samuel B. Roberts strikes a mine. The U.S. launches a retaliatory strike as part of Operation Praying Mantis. During this operation, Iranian speedboats and aircraft attacked American ships from several directions simultaneously, employing precisely the swarm saturation tactics that UAVs replicate today. The operation ended in a U.S. victory, but at the cost of significant strain on resources and several incidents in which swarm tactics nearly led to casualties. That was 1988. No drones, no precise GPS systems, no stealth UAVs. Iran worked with what it had, and even then, it worked. The second example is more recent. The Iranian Armed Forces Great Prophet exercises of 2020 and 2022. Open sources have documented the use of swarms of UAVs against mock-ups of American ships, an aircraft carrier, and destroyers. Iranian state media broadcast footage, dozens of drones attacking targets simultaneously from different altitudes and directions. All of this took place in the Strait of Hormuz and adjacent waters. This is not propaganda. It is a public demonstration of a well-rehearsed doctrine. Iran made no secret of its intentions. It conducted a dress rehearsal and invited everyone to watch. One Apache costs $45 million. Add to that the cost of training 2 pilots, a further $2 to $5 million per pilot for the full course, plus maintenance, spare parts, and logistics. The actual cost of a single combat-ready Apache in a conflict zone is closer to $60 million, taking into account the entire support chain. A single Iranian Mohajer 6 costs between $100,000 and $250,000. No pilot, no years of training, no logistics for aviation-certified spare parts. The ratio is between 180 and 240 to 1. This is not military superiority. It is an economic death sentence in the event of mass deployment. Now let's add a missile. If the Apache uses a Hellfire to intercept a UAV, the cost of a single missile is between $150,000 and $200,000. Intercepting a single drone costs roughly the same as the drone itself. An Apache's ammunition load consists of 16 Hellfire missiles. A swarm of 20 drones will use up the entire load, and even then, part of the swarm will still break through. This is oil from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, and Qatar. This is oil that, in a few weeks' time, becomes petrol at a filling station in Berlin, Warsaw, or Tokyo. It affects aviation fuel, and therefore the price of your flight ticket. It is factored into the cost of plastic, fertilizers, and synthetic fabrics, and ultimately into the price tag at the supermarket. One serious incident in the Strait of Hormuz, one tanker sunk, one successful attack on oil infrastructure, and oil prices jumped by $10 to $20 a barrel within a matter of hours. This is immediately reflected in fuel prices worldwide. In 2019, a drone attack on Saudi oil facilities in Abqaiq, a single incident, temporarily knocked out 5% of global oil production. Oil prices rose by 15% in a single trading session. That was one day, one attack. Imagine sustained escalation in the Strait. The military geometry of the Strait of Hormuz is not an abstract doctrine. It is a mechanism directly linked to your wallet. Now, the final scale, because the Strait of Hormuz is just one page. What Iran is practicing in the Strait of Hormuz, swarm attacks by UAVs, saturating air defenses with cheap drones, economic coercion through threats to transport arteries, is being closely studied in Beijing, Moscow, and Pyongyang. The Taiwan Strait is 45 kilometers wide. That is already 8 kilometers narrower than the Strait of Hormuz. With the same coastal asymmetry, with the same bottleneck logic, and with the Chinese CH series and Winglung UAVs, of which the PLA has far more than Iran has Shaheds, and which are technically far superior. What today looks like a regional incident in the Persian Gulf is merely a rough draft, a testing ground, a living textbook on how an asymmetric aerial threat can neutralize an enemy's technological superiority through mathematics rather than through direct combat. An Apache versus an Iranian drone in the Strait of Hormuz, that is 2024.